Thanks so much for clicking on this video. A weekly segment we called the Reforge Rundown, and this week we're going to kick things off mainly talking about Transformers Reactivate. If you missed this Transformers game announcement during the Game Awards, we have been combing over lots of different pieces of artwork, announcements. There was also leaks of a game previously being built and now being handed off that really points to potentially very good things. So me and my man 30 and So Gaming are going to chop this up. I'm going to end the previous stream. We were talking about the Modern Warfare 2 raid and why I think skill-based matchmaking is going to hurt that piece of content as well as others. I'm going to end that video and bring everybody over. If you like talk show style content, be sure that you are subscribed to this channel and make sure you're smashing that like button even if you're watching the VOD. It helps the video find more people. So if you are enjoying the video in the live audience or past broadcast, do that for us. It's really helpful. Mike, let's dive in here because the Transformers seems like the game or a game that should have existed for a long time. We've had a lot of attempts here, and I felt like most of the time I've tried a Transformer game, it really hasn't done what I needed it to do. Before we jump into Reactivate, what's your consensus here on like Transformer games? Like, have you played any that you thought were really good, that didn't hit the mark, or have you been kind of like me and others, like waiting for the real game to show up?
Oh yeah, no, I'm so hyped for this game, and I've played every Transformer game from Kingdom Come. Like my favorite ones are War of Cybertron, War of Transformers Devastation. Devastation like hit it for me where it captured the cartoon back in the day when I was a kid, and now I'm operating them inside the actual game. Like the other Transformers games was a stylized version, like the War of Cybertron and stuff like that. Like those were fantastic games. I don't think that game gets enough love. Transformers War of Cybertron. I think that game is probably one of the best Transformers games to come out as the style it was. It had PvP in there. It was just a good old time. The story was good. And then when Transformers Devastation came out, that's just a fighting game, right? Basically. And it's fantastic. I mean, the way they transformed and the way they captured it was fantastic. This game coming out, man, this is the game that I have proof of this because I've been doing a podcast for 8 years. And on the Generation X Gaming podcast, I've always said, I go, God, when Destiny first came out, I said, that's when we were in the honeymoon stage of Destiny. And I was like, man, if someone came out with a game like Destiny, but they did it in Marvel, they did it in Transformers, or they did it in Star Wars, I said, I'm done with Destiny. I said, because that's the game I want to play. And here we are, 8 years later. Potentially, we have this Transformers Reactive game coming out that could potentially be that Warframe / Destiny / Division type of game. And hype doesn't explain what I am about this game. I don't want to get disappointed, but I'm also never excited for video games anymore because they all come out and I'm always disappointed. And I'm probably going to disappoint myself with this game, but I'm super hyped right now for this.
Yeah, for those that don't know, there was an official press release on this as being a 4-player cooperative action game. But then we started digging a little bit, and the game was handed off to Splash Damage. It was being built by somebody else. I forget who now.
Certain Affinity and
That's
Digital
it.
Extreme.
Certain Affinity was building a third-person free-to-play Transformers MMO. And my only concern here when I look at this is now they're describing it as a 4-player action game, not seeing them, label this as an ongoing live service or an MMORPG. So just at that ground level, before we get into any of the other details or things that you found, does that cause you any concern to be like, maybe they just took the guts of what was going to be an MMO and they've just whittled it down into a throwaway 4-player action game that we'll play for like 2 weeks?
No, it was never, at least from the information that I've gotten from the people that have been following this much longer than I have, it was never supposed to be an MMO like WoW. Right, it was never supposed to be an Elder Scrolls Online. It was never supposed to be an MMO like that. It was always supposed to be, because it's based off of like Warframe, right? It was Certain Infinity with Digital Extreme. They were making the game, right? So they were making it like Warframe with the 4-player co-op, and they had the story. The story was speculatively, obviously, we don't know for sure yet, but the story that's been leaked and is that the Decepticons and Autobots have a an enemy that are in common, where they're both working together to fight this enemy, because Earth comes to basically a standstill. It's devastated, and the leftover humans on the planet are fighting the robots. Okay, and this is just a money making, man. I mean, I've never paid a microtransaction. I will buy a microtransaction in this game. I already know I will, right? Because the world comes to an end, and your humans are finding robots across the entire landscape of Earth, and so you'll go do a mission, and then you'll unlock, let's say, Soundwave, or you'll unlock Starscream, or you'll unlock Jazz, or Ironhide, whatever. So you're going to be collecting like the Warframes from Warframe. You're going to be don't think Destiny, think more Warframe than Destiny. But it's taking things that Destiny did well, like the strikes and different things so they're taking from bits and pieces of all this. But it was always supposed to be, at least from the leaks, that it was always supposed to be a 4-player co-op Destiny style, Warframe style, Division style type of game in this. So I don't think it's changed. They say the game is 100% done. When Certain Infinity was working on it, it was complete, but it was put on the shelf because Hasbro didn't have anything, right? There was no movies coming out. There was nothing. And they've been trying to restructure stuff with the IPs that they own. So they were waiting for the next anniversary thing, which is 15 years, which is The Rise of the Beast is coming out next year. So all of a sudden, they had this game worked on, and they weren't saying anything about it officially until Hasbro said, "Okay, let's start advertising for the next movie." It's not a movie tie-in, so don't think it's a movie tie-in, but it's just using it as a cross promotion. Like,
right,
the movie's coming out. Oh, and by the way, you could play a Transformers game, right? And that's what this is.
Well, there were some things in the leak, because D-Tom in chat was saying, "Hey, could I get a storyline basic summary?" And Mike touched on a lot of it, and some of that's been confirmed. Now, the Decepticons working with the Autobots has not been confirmed, but the enemy has been confirmed by the press release to be Legion, or the Legion.
Right.
And I don't know if there's lore reasons for there to be sort of like a treaty or a collaboration between the Autobots and the Decepticons to fight against the Legion, but the Decepticons are not named as the bad guys in this.
No, they're not.
And then the other thing the leak said was that it would be similar to Destiny's like Hunter, Titan, Warlock thing, where there would be damage tank and healer Autobots. So do you think we're going to be primarily playing as the ones that we find, or are we going to be making our own? Like, what am I going to have a Rolodex of Transformers that I choose from, like you said, like with the Warframes, or maybe they just teach me abilities or something?
So I don't know if I should name the sources, because he's not the source. Like, he's not my source. You can go look him up on a thing. But I've been talking about it so much, I don't want to feel like I'm not stealing it. Like, this is not. I didn't come up with this stuff. The people that I've grabbed are 2 other YouTubers that have very small channels that they've been following this game for multiple years. One, if you guys are interested, his name is RoboGamer1 HD. Okay. The other one, who has a lot more information, his name is DPZ Luna. Okay, and they have so much information, and one has a source that worked for the game, and the other one has files on the game, right? Like the actual files of the game. So what you asked was, are you going to be using the main characters, or are you going to be customizing your characters? So it's a little bit of both. You're not going to be making a customized Transformer, right? Because there's no money in that. Okay, the Transformers, the way the free-to-play model is going to work is that, just like Warframe, you're going to purchase or grind to get your Soundwave or Bumblebee or whatever. So the way the story supposedly is going to be working is you're going to start off, and this is from DPZ Luna. He says that you're going to start off as Optimus Prime, okay? And this is before, like, what happens in the story takes place. You're going to be Optimus Prime, and you're going to be maxed out. You're going to be, like, super powerful, right? So that's like the taste test. Think of Destiny a little bit, where you lose your light. You know what I mean? So you're going to have your powers. You're going to be super powerful, and then you're going to lose your powers. You're going to lose what it is, because basically, imagine an EMP going off, and then all Transformers go offline. Okay? So something happens, and Earth gets attacked. This weapon, this mass destruction weapon happens, and all the Transformers get wiped offline. Earth gets devastated, and the only hope for humanity is for the humans to reawaken okay, reactivate the robots to help them fight this alien virus that comes to planet Earth and starts destroying stuff, right? So you're going to start off as Optimus Prime, potentially. I'm going to keep saying that, chat. Okay, and then you're going to lose, and then you're not going to be Optimus Prime right off the bat. You're going to end up being, I believe it says Bumblebee, and which is what we see in the trailer, right? I'm assuming what we see in the trailer is literally like the beginning of the entire game. So you're going to play as Transformer Optimus Prime. You're going to get the buttons, the tutorials type of stuff, and then all of a sudden, the crap's going to hit the fan. The game's going to start, and then you get reactivated, and you're going to be Bumblebee, okay? And then from there, you're going to go on missions and do different things, and then you're going to, I don't know if you're going to be Bumblebee or if you're going to be one of those type of smaller type of robots, you know what I mean? Like not as famous or whatever. And you're going to start doing missions to reactivate other Transformers to add to your arsenal. And then once you add those robots to your arsenal, it could be a tank, it could be a healer, it could be, whatever the offensive, defensive healer aspect, where you're going to start upgrading your gear. You're going to start upgrading your armor. You're going to start upgrading your robots to be more powerful and get more stuff. That's potentially what's happening.
Okay. So, it sounds like they're going to do the tried and true, here's how great this is going to be, and then they take it all away. I would be more interested if it was like my own Transformer, because I do think it's fun to play as the others. I do think it's fun to have different Transformers that you're playing as, but I do like the idea, and I also think of like longevity and investment, being able to craft your own and build them out. But I also think there's a ceiling there, right? Like I do also think having a healer, a tank, and a damage that I'm investing in each of those in different ways could also work as well. Tying it to the main Transformers, I think, would be the right way to do it.
Well, here's the problem that I think. Like, I love Destiny, I love Warframe, I love Division, I love those type of looter games, but I've always felt like not attached to it, right? One, because they're new IPs, and then because they're a new IP, there's no story for your character, right? So in Destiny, your Warlock, your Hunter, your Titan is just a cog in the wheel, and there's an overall story happening, but you're just a player in that world. There's no backstory, right? With Transformers, with an IP like Transformers, like IP like Hogwarts Legacy and stuff like that, even though you're not playing Harry Potter, you're connected to the world that's already established in the movies, the books, you know what I mean? So you want to be a part of that world. In Transformers, growing up in the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s, there's always been a Transformers show, comic, something, and you've attached yourself to the backstory of Optimus Prime or Megatron or Soundwave. You know these characters right off the bat. So right when the game starts, you already know the prehistory, the pre-story, the origin story of Optimus Prime, of Bumblebee, and all these other things, and you're already connected, right? If you make your own character, in my opinion, yeah, sure, you get to customize and make it cool looking and stuff like that, but then you start to like, what are you going to be? Are you going to be a jet? Are you going to be a car? Are you going to take bits and pieces from Starscream and Soundwave and make your character? Because then you get what happens in like DC Universe Online. I don't know if you ever played that, right? Mm-mm. I look like Batman, but I don't have Batman ears. But I also have guns like Deadpool, right? Like I'm mixing and matching all these characters. Obviously, I know Deadpool's not DC, but I'm shooting guns. I have a cape on my back. I look like a Batman, but I fly like Superman. It's like a mixed match of stuff, and sure, it's my character, but again, I'm just a cog in the wheel of the main story. You're not invested in your story or the story of the character you're operating, right? This is why we like God of War. This is why we like Horizon Forbidden West, because you're connecting to that character in the story and making your, and continue the story, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think whenever you look at a game like this and you're considering story, I do think that story's in a weird spot. It has to be important and meaningful, but it can't override the player's sense of, I'm in this game, I'm making the choices, I'm choosing my own adventure, because it is fun to play a game like God of War, but ultimately I'm playing Kratos' story and not my own.
Right.
So I think in a Transformers game, many people are going to think the same thing. Like, I would love to have my own Autobot, my own Decepticon, and then, continue to make those decisions and think of ways to expand it out. It seems like a game ripe for just never-ending additions. Have you seen anything or heard anything about what's their plan to keep this thing ongoing? Because I think every live service game faces that challenge of what are our players going to be doing in the 10th month of the game's life?
I think that's always going to be a problem. I think the people that are the hardcores are going to keep playing, and the normies, I guess you could say, will get bored and come back, or maybe there'll be a character down the line. Like, let's say the game starts off and maybe someone's a fan of Grimlock, and Grimlock's not in the game right away, but all of a sudden during season, there's supposed to be seasons, there's supposed to be battle passes, there's supposed to be all that stuff. Maybe during season 2, the end character of season 2 is Grimlock to unlock, right? So you would come back and play the game to unlock your favorite character that you wanted to play. Maybe you weren't interested in all the other characters, but now Grimlock's in the game, and now you want to grind for him, get him. Supposedly you can be able to purchase him. It's exactly like Warframe. Like, you could grind to get the Warframe for free, or you could pay for the Warframe up front and then grind for levels for that Warframe. So you're paying to skip the get the part, and then you're playing the raise the part of the level. So that's basically what it sounds like it's going to be. Like, you can either grind to get Soundwave, or you can just pay to get Soundwave and then grind to level him up to make him more powerful and whatnot. So I think down the line they said they were going to, again, this is all speculation, this is all theories, this is all leaked information that we don't know it's solid confirmation yet, but it sounds pretty confident. And why would they lie based on the information they have? You know what I mean? Like, it just makes them look bad. So if it is how they say it is, they're supposed to be like Unicron is supposed to be down the road, right? So they already have content they're working on down the road for expansion. So Bulkhead, which is the company that Splash Damage just purchased, right? So they've now merged with the company that was helping them out, and now they're working, and they have job postings already for positions for level designs that are happening right now that they're hiring designers for Bulkhead. So what that tells me is that the game's already done, okay? It's ready to come out this year as far as the beta is concerned. Maybe it comes out late in the year, but the beta is supposed to be maybe early. I would say around about the time the movie comes out. That would be the smartest thing to do for the overall hype. But once the game launches, they're already going to have things working in the background, sort of like what Rare did with Sea of Thieves. They had like 3 teams, and they were working on, each season was one team dedicated for that season and pushing it out. I feel like that's the way. Hopefully they learned their lesson because of Warframe, because of Destiny, because of Division, and they don't make the same exact mistakes that all of these live service games have done before. These guys have enough ready to go. So you have your main game to last a couple of months, and then you have the seasons, and then you have more content going into year 2, year 3. While year 2 is working, they're working on year 3. And just keep putting it out like a conveyor belt, and keep feeding they could have different game modes. They can have different events. They could have events for just finding robots. They could have, I don't know if they're going to do PvP. I don't know, but there's a lot of potential what they could do. I don't know what they're going to do, because no game before it has the answers for this live service type stuff. There's always these peaks and valleys as you're playing through live service games.
Yeah, I mean, somebody in chat, Boss Man Davey, is saying multiplayer is the only thing that can keep a franchise like Transformers alive. I mean, obviously, we know that this will be something you can play with 4 players, but there are people that think that. They think, I don't know if he's saying this, but I'm gonna just extrapolate from that a lot of people look at a game like this and think, you need PvP, you need some place to fight and have an arena to make things last. And I immediately just think of all of the games that have struggled with that, and I'm like, why bother? Just keep it PvE, give me big things to do with my Transformer, give me awesome fights, awesome abilities, and awesome powers. And the challenge always with PvP is obviously balance, and they give your guy like a really, really strong ability, but then they have to worry about what that's going to do to the meta and other players. So they've not said anything about PvP. What are your thoughts on that idea that a game like this, it needs PvP to stay alive? Because I firmly disagree with that idea for games like this.
I would be okay if they had old school PvP where like the old school Halo, where you didn't level up weapons and one weapon wasn't OP. Like it was on the map, and if you got the sniper rifle or you got the grenade launcher or the rocket launcher, you would grab it, and it's a fair game. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like if it's like Destiny, that's the dead. That to me is a dead model, because if you, like you just said, if there's a OP gun that Optimus Prime has, and all of a sudden Optimus Prime is the meta, then everyone's getting Optimus Prime. Everyone's using that gun, and they're like, oh, they're gonna nerf the gun. Oh, they're gonna, and then the next thing's the meta. Where if it's just a bare bone Decepticons versus Autobots, capture the flag, and there's weapons on the map and stuff like that, sure. But then you're gonna have people going, well, I really want to level up my character. I really want to do that type of stuff. If you mix and you don't separate the PvP from PvE as far as weapons go, if you want to have your own PvP weapons and PvE weapons, cool. But if you combine those two, you're going to have the exact same problems you're having right now with all the other games that never separate. And you have to nerf and buff. And then what about if Megatron's cannon on his arm is way too OP, but it's awesome for PvE, but all of a sudden it's too OP for PvP? Then people are going to be upset. Oh, they ruined Megatron. I guess I'll use Starscream now. You know what I mean? Like that type of stuff. I would love if they did PvP in the realm of, I don't know, like like old school, like a Doom type of thing. You run around, or you know what I mean? Like that's just fun PvP if you want to keep fighting and you win the match, you're a Decepticon. Woohoo! You know, maybe you go up points XP for like the season pass or whatnot. But I don't want them to touch the weapons and balance, because that just ruins it for me. I would rather just play with you or play with someone else in the PvE aspect of the game and go on a raid or go on a strike, or hey, I need to find Soundwave. I need some parts for him. Oh, all right, let's go do that, you know, and go grind for some parts for the new, and then unlock that new Transformer. PvP, I don't think lives or dies with this particular game. Warframe has PvP, and do people complain about it? I mean, they play it, but it's not like that game's still living on, still expanding, doing open worlds, doing more story stuff.
Yeah.
That's 80% PvE.
Yeah.
And like 20% PvP. Even if it is 20%, I don't even think it's that high, right? It's there, but not many people play it.
My thought on this is always the same. I find it really hard to find games where the PvP gets 100% of what it can be and hits its potential and it feels polished and good, and the PvE also gets that. I feel like they're always competing with each other for bandwidth, for attention, for excellence. The games that own their core competency, they're like, we're a PvP game, and then that's all they have to focus on. Right. And then games that are like, we're a PvE game, this is all we have to focus on. I always feel like you're creating a tension where you're going to have to shift a team of bandwidth. You need people that are focusing on the PvP, and then they're not focusing on other things, and vice versa. So I always think to myself, if you want a really good PvP game, stop trying to tack it on to another game. Like, go play a PvP game if that's what you want. There's plenty of them out there. That's all they offer you.
I mean, look at the PvP players. They always complain that, oh, they nerfed this, they moved that, they changed this, the skill-based matchmaking. They complain about everything. They move from Call of Duty to Battlefield to Apex to Battle, right? They just keep moving and moving. These companies that are making games like this, they want you to play their game, and they want to sell you robots, right? They want to sell you Transformers. They want to sell you cosmetics for the Transformers. They want to sell you, and I don't think, sure, if I go into a PvP match and see Optimus Prime, Shattered Glass skin on him, I'll be like, oh man, I want the Shattered Glass skin. But at the same time, they could do the exact same thing without going to PvP with balancing issues and doing dev time towards that. With PvE, 1 to 4 player co-op, you're like, oh cool, what skin is that? They're like, oh, this is from Generation 2. And you're like, oh, that looks badass. I want to get that, right? And that sells the stuff just like it would if it was PvP or PvE, right? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This type of game, I don't believe, this particular type of game doesn't need PvP to survive. I think this type of game needs exactly what Warframe does. What do they have, like 50 Warframes now inside that game?
I don't even know.
Okay. They just keep putting Warframes in that game, and people keep buying them. They have people that create them. Community people make the Warframes. They keep putting the DLC, and they keep adding to the story. They keep expanding the universe inside that world. That's what keeps people coming back. Now, someone could look at Warframe and go, well, Warframe is dead. It's dead to you because you're not playing that game. There's a huge community that still plays Warframe. There's still a huge community that plays these type of PvE live service games. 43 Inc. I thought it was 50. I could have sworn it was 50. Let me see.
Yeah, and Wheezy's saying you don't want your game to end up like Warframe. There's absolutely zero complexity or depth. I think every time we look at games like Warframe, Destiny, and even Diablo 3 in its current state, we're looking at games that cobbled together what you're playing now. They weren't built to be what they are now. Destiny 2 is having a lot of backlash from their community that they're having to speak to with respect to, we have literally done this 1,000 times before. This doesn't feel new. Diablo 3 has that issue, right? Every season, it's a bunch of things to do that you've kind of done before for cosmetics. Warframe, it does feel like a lot of these games suffer because they're built on a foundation that was never intended to be where we are right now. And it's going forward is going to be the true test. Games that say from moment one, no, this game is intended to be played for 10 years. Like Diablo 4 is a great game to look at and see. It's going to be a great test case, right? When we get halfway through 2024, what are people going to be saying about Diablo 4? Like, did it work? Did they pull it off? Did they build a game from ground up to be played for 10 years and do the parts and pieces seem to be built for it? And then when I look at a game like Transformers, I'm thinking, bro, you play this game for 10 years. There are so many Transformers. There are so many places you could go. There are so many stories you could tell. But you were just getting at something that I think is always the challenge. You were talking about skins and making your guy look dope. And I feel like there's two primary ways to drive engagement in games like this. Loot as a means of power and cosmetics as a means to look cool. Those are like the two things.
Yeah.
One you can do for forever. I know 7 years from now you can do something that's going to make Bumblebee look sick, and I'm going to be like, oh, I got to get that. But that only goes so far, right? How do you handle ongoing elasticity of a loot table to say, oh yeah, in 2 years, in 7 months, we're going to have loot for you or Transformers for you that don't disrupt or undercut or devalue everything you've done up to that point?
I don't know if they can ever stop the devaluing of what you're going for, right? You're constantly always going after the carrot on the stick type of thing. So, oh, and by the way, there is 50th Warframe. As of August 26th, they announced, and I don't know if it's already out. It's the Syntax, the 50th Warframe, a Mystical Warrior Shield and Spear. So there you go. There are 50 Warframes in Warframe. So answer your question, I don't think you could ever catch up to that. You're always going to have like season 2 comes out and all of a sudden there's a I don't know, some Energon sword that they put in the game, and that's the next game, that's the next gun or sword or fist that you need to get for your Transformer. That's always, well, it's going to leave the other ones in the past, and they're going to have some sort of, which they do have a crafting system and ways to do stuff, but I don't know any of that yet, like the details, the meat and potatoes of it. But you're always going to have to give something new to chase, and then that's the meta for that particular event. So let's say they had a Christmas event come out, and you fought the, I don't know, maybe it was the Destructicons, the Constructicons had Devastator, and Devastator was bad, and Legion took him over, and you had to do a big boss fight against Devastator, right? Well, maybe Devastator now drops this piece of weapon that you can grind for and get, which makes that fight easier once you get that weapon. You know, it's sort of like I forget the event that happened in the game that should not be named. I forget what it was, but you needed to get the weapon to make that event so you could grind that event more and more faster to get better drops and to have more things. That's always going to be a thing. I don't think you're ever going to fix that. As far as the loot, as far as the skins, this potentially is, they could start with G1 and then season 2 they bring in, because it's a 1 to 4 player game. So I'm assuming you could be Optimus Prime. I could be Optimus Prime. You know, Ink could be Optimus Prime. So we could have 4 Optimus Primes on the map at one time, right? Unless they're like, can't have more than one, which I don't think is going to happen. There's a little screen in the trailer that shows 6 screens, and one of them says Invasion Timeline on there, right? And time travel and stuff has already been introduced to Transformers. Okay, so maybe because there's an invasion timeline, that means there's another timeline that wasn't invaded yet, right? So there could be other Transformers that you're bringing in for help, and hence why you could potentially have 4 Optimuses or 4 Megatrons, and your Megatron can look different than my Megatron, and you could have bits and pieces that are cosmetic that you can get that would get the type of people to grind to get a piece of gear that it might look like a flare on the piece of gear, but it also gives you like a 10% boost head damage or body damage, or you know what I mean? Like that's what's going to make people come back because of the armor, the mid-maxing. That's the type of stuff that's going to make them come back.
Yeah, almost like taking a lot of my speeches that I've done on contextual power, and you're taking it further than that. You're almost saying, well, we could extrapolate from what you're saying at least, that you're going to go to places, universes, and planets where you're going to need new weapons, new powers, new Transformers, because in that like little microcosm of a universe, that's the power threshold there. You wouldn't necessarily have power creep. It was like, no, you got to go to a whole new place, and there's all new stuff to get, and all the stuff that you have now is... It's almost like making somebody step into that new car smell of an RPG where the little dings are happening, the little drops are happening, and they matter. They're not devaluing what you've built. That's still contextually there if you go back to those areas, if you go back to those places. And then you're able to go into this new place and get new stuff and feel that sense of power growth and commitment all over again, and not feel like, well, you just devalued everything I worked on. No, we didn't. This is a lateral move here.
Right.
It's a lateral move, but then after you make the lateral move, you get to go up again.
Right. So if let's say you're on planet Earth, and on Earth it's just basic. There is no, there's no really hard enemies. It's just you're grinding your gear level to go up, and they're just always like 2 levels above you. So you're kind of struggling. But then all of a sudden you go to, let's say, Cybertron, right? And Cybertron, they do electro damage or whatever it is, right? Well, you don't have electro damage to stop that. So you have to start grinding on Cybertron to get the armor to put on your character to stop that from happening. And then you also have to get the weapons on there. You're going to be using basic weapons. But once you get to Cybertron, you're going to find a weapon that does electric damage back to them. And then it helps you do that content easier, right? That's a lateral move where, yes, you're re-grinding for stuff. But then when you go back to Earth, right, you don't have to change your gear up because, again, I'm speculating. I don't know if this is happening in the game, folks. This is my, like, an idea, like, where if you go back to Earth, you don't want to use the electro damage because there's different damage and different output that you have to do and change your weapons. It works better on Earth, and this one works better on Cybertron. This one works better wherever you go, right? That's the way you can keep it fresh and new without devaluing, because I always say respect the player's time, right?
Yeah.
And if I grind on Earth and I have the best weapons on Earth, but now I go to a different planet, I might have the best weapons and it might help me on that planet for a little bit, but you have to get the new weapons on that planet to help you fight things on that planet. You know what I mean? Like, you have to change your gear, your loadout. You have to move. Otherwise you get this is actually, we had this conversation all the time, like the gun that we always used to complain. I can't remember what the gun was. The pistol, the hand cannon.
Oh wow, you forgot the name of the Fatebringer?
I've completely Fatebringer. Thank you. I've completely divorced Destiny. I don't know anything anymore about it. Right. So the Fatebringer, right? I always said, let me bring it along with me. Let me keep that weapon.
Yeah, you always said that. I want to level it up. Yeah.
I want to keep it for 7 years. Right.
Yeah.
Let me keep it. Well, if in this world, if I find that particular type of gun on Earth, and then I go find other planets, like in Warframe, there's the whole solar system, but that gun works best on Earth, then I would go back to Earth, put that gun back on, and I'm still using that weapon, right? It's not taken away from me. It's not power creep. It's not devaluing my time. Like, I grind for 30 hours to get this gun, and then all of a sudden you're like, sorry, doesn't work anymore. And you're like, but I literally just got it in December, and now you guys nerfed it 1 year later, and I can't, like that hurts. That hurts. That devalues the person's time in the game.
I wanted your thoughts on something. Arkham 927 and Dark Taco are kind of debating in chat about the PvP thing. I don't want to retread that, but I like seeing that. I like seeing you guys are kind of having the ongoing debate. And Dark Taco says those contextual power talks were S tier. And as I'm sort of applying those talks to this talk, and Mike saying what he's saying, I still sense a danger in your philosophy, and this is something I threw out the other day. I said, listen, if we did this contextual power thing, let's say you're doing 4 seasons a year, right?
Right.
So seasons 2, 3, and 4, we would be going to 3 different locations, Cybertron and a couple others. And each of those seasons, the centrality would be you need new armor, gear, and stuff. You need the contextual power of that place. So it's a lateral move that then enables you to go vertically up and feel the sense of power progression. But once you get beyond those 4 seasons, it's time for season 5.
Right.
And what I said you would do is you would loop back to, as you said, Earth, So your vanilla build, let's call it. And now they start to drop loot activities and things on Earth that makes you leave behind your Transformers Fatebringer, which I know you don't want to do. But if there's that much distance in time before they make you do it, and you've gone to all these other planets, would that give you enough of sort of an inoculation to say, oh, I'm fine with this, this is okay, I'm willing to completely change my Earth loadout and go get new loot? Or would it still have that devaluation effect on your sense of, I did all this for my Earth build and now you're making me kind of leave it behind?
Well, it would be different if, like, the map that was leaked about this game, you start off in New York, and then there's like a Chicago section city, and then there's like different parts of the country and the world. So in your description, let's say New York, Chicago, and let's say, I don't know, Miami are the 3 Earth cities that you're in season 1, right? And then all of a sudden year 2 comes, and then all of a sudden we go to Cybertron or whatever, and then we come back, right? Like you said, and we come back to Earth. But New York now, New York, Chicago, and Miami are still season 1, but now they've introduced a new city where now you're in Dubai, or now you're in England or London, you know what I mean? And there's new boards on Earth. Then I would be okay with that, where I can still use my weapons that I got from New York, Chicago, and Miami, okay, in those lower level year 1 type of stuff, even though the level would still go up. I would still be able to use the weapons that I still earned and respect, where the new cities like Dubai, London, and whatever else, you would be getting new gear on the planet. So you would still do exactly what I just said if you went to Cybertron. There'll be new higher level tier. There'll be different, buffs or nerfs on those weapons. So you would have to use different weapons for those events. So if there's open world areas, let's say like a patrol zone, you could use whatever weapon you want, right? Have fun. But if you go into like a dungeon or a mission or something, and you're going up against bosses or harder enemies, you're going to have to use certain weapons and armor to load out yourself so you can do that gear. I'm okay with that. I just don't like what the other game's done, where they're going, hey, we're taking this completely away from you because it's too big and there's not enough room on the disc for us to hold everything, right? Like, I don't like that. If that's what they're doing, no. But if I choose free will to go, I want to use this weapon, but now I can still use my Fatebringer type S gun over in London, but I would be like brute forcing my way through that instead of using the weapon that would get me an easier time going through that event. You see what I'm saying?
For sure. And I have to put on my armchair developer hat and say, holy moly, that's so much capital in the game that we can't do anything with. Like, we can't do anything with New York and Chicago because you want your build to stay relevant there. Do you see what I'm saying? It's almost like you're going to lock those cities in time, aren't you?
No, because if you're using the exact same layout, like if you're going back into Manhattan again for another story beat, because I'm not saying they're lazy because I don't even know what they're doing yet, but
sure.
if I'm in Manhattan, lower Manhattan, okay, in year 1, and then in year 2, now we do upper Manhattan, it's 2 different sections. Do you see what I'm saying? But if they go back to lower Manhattan again, then yeah, you're devaluing, because you could go anywhere. You could literally make a different city and put different like ratings and bosses and different things. But if you're going back to the same location like you did in year 1, then sure, it would be a lot of capital. But what do if a person's just starting out the game for the first time? You're in year 3, but someone's picking up the game for the first time 3 years into the game. Now, is New York not as what it was before? You see what I'm saying? Like, if they continue to expand it would be different. But if they're using the same thing and changing it, it would be like World of Warcraft changing for Burning Crusade, right? Like, Burning Crusade completely changed the landscape of World of Warcraft, where if you came in, you didn't know what the old world looked like. You had to be in Burning Crusade. You see what I'm saying? So if you're doing that, you're doing what Destiny's did, where they take stuff away from you and then they bring it back and say, hey, it's new type of stuff. And then the people can't play the Red War anymore. They can't play that content anymore. That's bad, in my opinion. If you're a developer and you keep adding stuff to it, that's just more content for people, whatever level they're coming in at. They have to start back at New York. They have to go back New York, Chicago, Miami, then go to Cybertron, then go to, London, and all these other places, right? They just keep adding to it instead of taking stuff away.
The reason that I've always said you need to reinvigorate the old while adding the new is because I believe what it does is it creates a harmony. If you don't do this, you end up with this dissonance and this lopsidedness to where everybody's just focusing on the new stuff and the old parts of the game just get kind of drug behind like this derelict dead body that like no one cares about any of these areas. And I think there's a subtle brilliance to, in your example, the new city and the new zone and the new activities, loot, and gear is all in Dubai. But then Chicago and New York get reinvigorated, upgraded, sort of brought up to snuff, and that's still your beginning entrance point catalyst for new players, because now they're ready to jump into year 2. I don't think you can always say, hey, we're in year 3, and we're still maintaining that year 1 entrance point for players. I think you're going to kill your game if you do that, because then it's like the game never truly moves forward. But what I do is I go back through the game and wash over it and always raise and reinvigorate those existing areas, so you're always sort of evolving the game, taking it forward, and then you're always maintaining that entrance point for players, but then existing players don't do that lopsided dissonance where like all that matters is the new stuff. It's like, no, you're kind of bouncing between two of the new and the reinvigorated.
Well, in the world that I'm talking about is if I wanted to go back to Manhattan and let's say I'm level 60, everything in New York in the starting area where you first started would all be up to your level at 60, but the new person that's coming in, because this is not an MMO, this is not where there's hundreds of people walking around the same server as you, right? This is a 1 to 4 player, like sort of your own instance type of thing, right? Where you might go out into the world and me and you play one day and I go back to New York, but we're level 60. So we're going up against level 62 beings inside of New York. Now the gear that you're dropping there is the same gear you were getting before, but now it's at a higher level or whatever, right? So it's still usable for you. You're still going for certain grinds or whatever in there to have the same gear drop at a higher level. So you could either get it at a higher level or you can grind your gear. Again, this goes back into the whole conversation of crafting. If I craft a weapon and then use that weapon to level up the entire time, or do I get the drop in the world and that has random rolls on it? You see what I'm saying? Like, so there's a whole other conversation there. But yeah, if you're in a wide open MMO world, you're 100%, I believe, correct. In the world that I'm talking about is that world stays where it is. If I go back to New York, it's just at my level now. But if someone comes into my world and they're level 1 and I'm level 60, obviously they're going to get their ass kicked because it's going to scale, but there's too big of a gap, so they probably wouldn't be able to join. But if I join them, I'll be one-tapping everything in their New York, where if they come into my New York, sort of like what Division does, right? You can come into my world and it could be super challenging, on challenging difficulty, but I can go to your world and it could be on hard, and I'm destroying things in 2 seconds. But when you come to my world, you're barely doing any damage to anything because you're under level, right? That's the type of stuff I'm talking about. So it always stays cohesive, right? Right now, people in Division, when they're playing, if I'm high level and I help someone at a lower level, I'm destroying things in their world, right? But if they come into my world, sure, they're doing more damage, but they're not doing as much damage as I am, right? So I'm doing millions of points of damage, and they're doing hundreds of thousands of points of damage. So that's the how you can keep your longevity going, because sure, the game gets bigger and they're not adding content to that New York or Chicago stuff 3 years into the thing. They don't have to, because you can just go back and go, oh, you know what? I want to farm that boss that was in New York and see what drops I get. And you can go back and now it drops at the higher level, or at least you would like it to drop at a higher level.
Yeah. I always think that's going to be a challenge with games like this. And I know this game's not from what you've read, it's not supposed to be an MMO.
No.
The challenge is MMO is getting used a lot now. Like Destiny is an action MMO according to Luke Smith. Diablo 4 is going to be an MMO, and then this was described as a free-to-play third-person MMO, but you're saying more like Warframe, less like World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I think there should be a new genre. I think it should be like MMO light. I really do. Yeah. I don't think it's a full MMO, because MMO is massive multiplayer online. This is not massive. I mean, if you're only playing 4 players, and even if there's a social hub, and let's say there's 32 players or something in the social hub area, like Division or a Warframe or a Destiny, when you're in the hub, that doesn't make it a MMO, right? But it is an MMO as far as the quality of it's constantly leveling up. They're constantly doing stuff in the game. So it is an MMO, but it's a light MMO. It's not a full-fledged MMO.
Yeah, and I think that's the rise. That's the turn that's coming. The turn of the tide in gaming is there's a bridge between the sort of lighthearted live service games and hardcore MMOs, and they're kind of meeting in the middle. And it's like, it's kind of like a live service game that's ongoing with like seasons and stuff, but it's also like an MMO because there's tons of people playing and you're leveling and you're highly invested, and you know it's being built for 4 to 10 years, you know, of a life cycle. In a game like Transformers, when you looked at the concept art, what were your thoughts on them going for more of the classic look? Like their faces look like faces instead of like what they look like in the movies where every part of their face is almost robotic. I really like the art style they're going for. It almost looks like a blend of the cartoon and photorealism. It's like somehow meeting in the middle.
Yeah, so did you see the cutscenes?
No.
Okay, there's 2 cutscenes that are leaked that are in game, but they're done like in a comic book style. They're not done in-game trailer, right? They're just, so it's like stills, and then like the camera moves. You know what I'm talking about? It's sort of like I'm trying to think of a game that did it.
Oh, like that Dusk Falls game where like it's like freeze frames.
Yeah. It's like a freeze frame, but it's inside the game. They have 2 trailers out. They have one for Autobots and they have one for Decepticons. Okay. And the way they look is G1 more style than anything else, right? So even the developer came out and said that G1 fans, you guys are going to be really excited and you're really going to love this because this is where it's starting. And I think that's where it needs to start because that's where it all started, right? And this is where I think the timelines come in, where if you are a person that started watching Transformers when you were a kid in the 90s, or if you watched it in the early 2000s and you like the Rescue Bots or you like the Netflix show or whatever, I think everyone's going to get what they want in this as far as cosmetics go, because you can make it G1 first. And the average gamer, and I think the clientele they're going for is us. The average gamer now is like 30, I think it's like 36, 38 is the average gamer, right? Yeah. A lot of people, this IP, I'm telling you, is nostalgic, man. Everyone's like, oh man, Transformers. I love Transformers when I was a kid. Like I'm becoming a 13-year-old kid again, going, oh man, I can't wait for the Transformers game, because that IP is powerful for adults and for children. More, I think, for the middle-aged guys right now, like for us, like mid-30s, 40-year-olds. We're like, oh, dude, I want a Transformers game so bad. And now you're going to get it. So I think they start off with G1, and then they slowly progress through each of the eras and add them in. Because then you're hitting all bullet points. Because if you're a 90s kid and you're like, oh, I really like the Beast Wars, and all of a sudden they throw Beast Wars in there, you're going to be like, oh, that's my jam. And then you're going to jump into the game, right? Where if you're a G1 fan, you're going to jump in from the start. If you're a G1 fan and you're waiting 2 years in to get the G1, you'll be like, yeah, no, I'm going to wait. They want to make sure they get the older clientele first, because the other guys will just fall in because it's a video game. And if it's a looter and it's fun, they'll play it. But then if they start adding the cosmetic skins of their favorite cartoon or favorite era of Transformers, that's a win. That's a win, man. That's a win across the board for everybody.
Whenever I went to cover this, the first thing I was going to argue for, and this is when I didn't know nearly as much, and then I looked at Tom Hendy's leaks, Tom Henderson's leaks. I was arguing, like, give me live service. I want this to be an ongoing thing. I want them to add on to it. And I did that because I know there's a lot of people that are going to come in and tell me, like, no, I don't want live service. They're sort of anti-live service. Why do you think that is? Do you with the rise of games that seem to want to do this, they don't want to spend all this time building a game and then walk away from it 3 months after launch. Why do you think there's this almost like this antagonism to live service games in the gaming community? And are there examples of games that maybe these people should try? Like, man, live service is not the enemy, because I'm sort of like the live service evangelist. I'm like, make more games live service. Quit throwing millions of dollars away on these ecosystems, these worlds, these projects that you make your money back and enough to build another game, and then you just literally spend the next 5 years just building something else. Like, I'm super big on give me more live service. I'm not anti single player. Like, I loved God of War Ragnarok. It was my game of the year. I'm looking forward to Hellblade 2. But man, oh man, I think the minute I walk away from strong narrative-driven single player, I'm like, give me a game that's going to last more than that month that it launches in.
It's funny that you bring it up as far as the live service. Like, I just watched the Hogwarts Legacy game showcase too that they did, right? And they showed that room of requirements, and I thought it was strange, right? Because I was like, why would you decorate everything in this room for yourself, right? To me, it looks like there had to be some sort of co-op, or where you could invite your friends over to come and look at your room of requirements, right? And look at the stuff that you're putting. Because unless you're a streamer and you're putting it on screen, or your dad or mom sitting in the living room, hey, Dave, babe, look what I did. You know, you're doing it for yourself, and sure, you're enjoying it, but it would sure be nice if you could show it off to somebody else, right?
Sure.
And as a live service game, that would make sense for Hogwarts. But I'm not asking for like a live service where I have 50 other people playing the game at the same time as me walking around the school, but it does make sense. And I said for that game, I believe that they're going to add sort of like Ghost of Tsushima did, like a co-op or PvP or something down the line for that game. They're just launching it and then letting it just breathe a bit to see how the world comes out and people like it or don't like it and get lost in it. And then they're like, hey, you know what? We're adding co-op, so now your friends can come and visit you at Hogwarts in your room or in your room of requirements. That would make that game quality of life much better and more enjoyable, because now your friends can hang out with you and you can, shoot the crap while you're playing Hogwarts. Sure, I could play it, you could play it, we could be on a headset and talk about it, and I'm in a room and you're in the room, but we're not in the same room. You know what I mean? Like, so a live service game. A good example is Borderlands. Borderlands 1 and 2, they had DLCs. That wasn't considered a live service game. That was just considered a game, right? A co-op game, 1 to 4 players. And they just kept adding more DLC. They threw more DLC at you, paid DLC. Live service kind of takes that paid DLC out of the equation and kind of just gives you free events while you're waiting for the paid events in between, right? That's what live service is. Now it's all kind of changed. You look at Destiny, and Destiny, if you like it or hate it, they're the first ones to really do something, and they're the last one basically standing. They're the most popular one. They're very successful at what they do for what they're doing, even though people are upset at what's happening to Destiny right now. It's the same thing. You get upset. They keep adding stuff. You forgive them. You do the same thing over and over. It's insanity, but that's what you like. It's a hook. Warframe does it, but not as good. Division does it, but not as good, right? So live service to me, I don't like it because of the microtransactions, the constant taking away, the constant doing. But at the same time, I would hate to play a game where you just play it and put it down for particular games, right? It's not a God of War where you play it and put it down, make a game, sell a game. It's a living, breathing world that you want to like do more in. You want to, like Hogwarts looks amazing for how big it is. And I would hate to play like 100 hours of that and then never touch it again, like a Red Dead. Right? Red Dead lived on because of the online aspect of it, right? You could do the missions and stuff with friends and posses and stuff like that. Grand Theft Auto lived on as a live service game because of the online stuff, not because of the single player stuff. So if they can do the live aspect of that and keep it going, I'm all for it, as long as they keep it going and there's not these huge peaks and valleys where you're waiting 6 months, 8 months, 10 months for something to come into the game and you're like, I'm bored of it, right? Like, I want to fantasize about being in this world and I don't want to leave your world. If you're a developer and you can keep me in your world 24/7 nonstop, like a World of Warcraft, right? Like an MMO, like an Ultima Online, like a Star Wars Galaxies, like that's what you want. Those are live service games. Those are true live service games, MMOs. These other games, these light MMOs, are not really live service games. They string you along until the next DLC drops.
Yeah, I mean, in Creature's saying, why spend $100 million in 5 years for something that has an 18-month shelf life? I mean, some of these games don't even have that. I mean, 3 to 6 month shelf life if they're lucky. And I had this debate with my stream the other day because you're bringing up Hogwarts. We're obviously talking about the latest Transformers game and.
Sorry, I'm using examples. So
no. I'm going to bring up another game. I'm just letting anybody that might be coming in like, hey, I thought this was going to be about Transformers Reactivate. Well, tangentially, Hogwarts Legacy looks like, oh man, that'd be a great game to play with other people. And I had a great debate with my stream about Starfield, because I had a guy say, oh, I can't play with other people. Well, that's DOA. And people are like, oh my gosh, that seems so extreme. Why would it be DOA if you can't play with other people? And I think people would treat a Transformers game in a really similar way. I want to play with other people. And so I had a debate with my audience, and I said, listen, I think the interconnectedness of the generation behind us and the way that they sort of, their social existence is so much online and connected to other people. I think their expectations of games like this, games that are, and it's an RPG where you're putting yourself in the game.
Right.
I think they're going to expect it to be online with other people. They'll look at a game like Starfield in 10 years and be like, "What the frick is that? Well, an RPG that I play by myself?" And I got a lot of pushback and disagreement. Do you think that cultural shift, trend and change is going to happen? Am I accurate in that prediction that not all games? I'm saying in the realm of games that are RPG, they're big, they're expansive, and you put yourself in that game. Is that expectation going to be, I play this online with other people because I'm in the game, and I want people to see my room of requirement or to see my character's armor?
You look at Fallout 76, for instance, right? I think Fallout 76 has made a bad example of Starfield if it doesn't have co-op or some sort of co-op online multiplayer experience. Because if Starfield is just Skyrim, okay, like the bar has been raised, right? Even though Fallout 76 was trash when it came out, you could play that with 4, 6, 8 of your friends and play in a game and have fun in a Fallout universe, right?
Yeah.
That's a light MMO, if I've ever seen one. It's a really fun game. Sure, it was broken, buggy, and unfinished, but 4 years later, it's actually a pretty good game as far as what it's trying to do. Now, Starfield comes out. If it's a single-player game, don't get me wrong, people are going to love it and play it. But remember when No Man's Sky came out and you played No Man's Sky, it was fun for a bit, but then you got lonely and bored and you're like, what am I doing? I can't meet anybody. It's just myself in this giant world, and I'm building this base for myself. But now when they added the multiplayer for it, No Man's Sky skyrocketed. People are like, yeah, come and see my base. Let's go on missions together. Let's do all this stuff, right? Like you said, not every game needs to be a online multiplayer co-op type of thing, but certain genres and games, like they need it. They need it to live and breathe. If Sea of Thieves was just a single player game, do you think it would be as popular as it is right now?
No,
you just sail on a boat, go to each island, get your treasure, go back in, and then you're like, I love the game, but at the same time, you're like, it's kind of boring. I wish I could play with a friend, right? That's what type of game that you need to be. Like Starfield, to me, again, it might be a GTA 5. I said it months and months ago. It might launch as a single-player game, but they'll add some multiplayer to it because, man, that's going to feel really lonely when you can go to 1,000 planets all by yourself. Congratulations, right? But if you could go with one other person and go on an adventure with somebody else to go into a cave or a dungeon or a strike or whatever, that makes it that much better.
Yeah, because I wanted Starfield to be like, I want to experience that like Star Trek and just explore and see all these places with a crew, and I kind of want other people to be in there with me, And we've got some pushback in chat from Carlos, and he's doing what commonly happens in the discussion of live service, because Transformers Reactivate, for all intents and purposes and what we can see, it's going to be a live service game, an ongoing game that's supported and expands itself and adds to itself and has a monetization structure where you're putting more money into it 3 months, 6 months down the road. And his contention is that live service games are broken at launch and they shovel out crap and they're not good. And obviously, I've always said bad launched games don't happen because of live service. Like Cyberpunk's not a live service game and it was a disaster at launch. Right. And bad launched games are not indicative of live service. They're indicative of either crunch or bad deadlines. Right. So what do you say to that? That people are like, well, all live service games, they launch broken and buggy at launch, and the devs are lazy, and they'll just, we'll fix it over time. Where does that come from, and what do you think about it?
It all depends on what type of live service game it is. Am I paying $70 for that live service game, and it's broken buggy when it launches, or is it a free-to-play game, and it's broken buggy when it launches? See, I've noticed that more games that are full price live service games are more broken buggy when they launch because they've been in development for a bit of time and they want to make their money back on it and then see what the popularity is and then add to it as they see fit. Where a free-to-play live service game has to be good when it comes out because it's free to play, right? It's got to look great. Look at Genshin Impact, right? That's a free-to-play game, okay? It looks fantastic, okay? It's a gacha game, okay? But the gameplay, the quality of it, like everything about Genshin Impact is phenomenal. Why? Because it's free to play, and they know if you had to pay $70 for that, the entrance fee of that is like, nah, I'm good. But if it's free to play, you get into there and you're like, dude, this looks amazing. Oh, the gameplay's fun. Oh, and the cosmetics are fantastic. Oh, I'll throw $5 at it. I'll throw $10 at it because I'm not going to throw $70 at it if it's a broken, buggy game. But a free to play game comes out and it works fine. It works beautifully, and they're selling you cosmetics and stuff on top of that, right? So there's a difference between a live service game if it's paid and a live service game that's free. And I wholeheartedly agree with Carlos as far as games come out more broken, buggy, because they're like in the old days it was 2-3 years. Now it's 3 to 5 years to make a game, but they launch it at 2, launch it at 3, and then they fix it for the next 2 years. Right, and that's considered live service. They throw in a right, and it's broken buggy. Battlefield is a multiplayer game, but it's a live service game. Okay, and it's broken buggy, and it's been 1 year now, but they fixed it, and they fixed it over time where it should have been at launch what it is today, and then kind of make the little bug fixes. They completely rehauled that whole game because of it. So I agree with it as far as if games come out, live service games are broken buggy, sure, but again, like Lono said. Cyberpunk wasn't a live service game and it was broken buggy. There's been other games that weren't live service games and they've come out and broken buggy. So it's about the developer and what their time is and their time frame they're putting in. But free-to-play games, there's not many free-to-play games out there you're like, man, this is a terrible free-to-play game. Because what's the downside? If you think it's broken buggy on a free-to-play, don't play it. You didn't spend money on it, don't play it. You just don't give the most value that you have is your time. And if a free-to-play game is broken buggy, you just leave it there until they fix it, and then you go play it later. But if it's a $70 game now, and you buy it, and it's broken buggy at the start, you're pissed off because you've invested your money, the time that you spent earning that money, to now go spend it on something that's broken and unfinished. That's the problem, right? So if it's a free-to-play game, I don't think it's a problem. You just don't play it. If it's a $70 live service game and it's broke, unfinished, that's a problem.
Yeah, Abe says, just because a game is live service doesn't mean it's for sure going to be a buggy mess. Most games these days are launching like crap. I think what's happening right now, my theory on why we're having such a rash or run of like bad game launches, I think we're getting out from underneath the shadow of the sickie and people are trying to get to market first. And they're not ready. Right? I think next year is going to be a monsoon of significantly higher quality games because they're letting them bake a little bit longer. Starfield and Redfall got delayed. Numerous games got delayed and shoved into next year. And the games that decided, no, we're going to be first to market. We're going to land before everybody else. Callisto Protocol, Plague Tale Requiem. Gotham Knights has its own weird baked-in issues, but it's an example of a pretty poor performance game. I'm telling you, I think these games were like, we're just trying to get to market before everybody else does because they know 2023 is going to be bonkers. And none of those games are bad because of live service. They're bad because they weren't ready. Right.
They were undercooked. That's exactly what the problem is. A lot of these games, like I said, if it takes 3 to 5 years to make a game, a AAA game nowadays, but they launch it at 2 years or they launch it at that 3, but they really needed 4 years and they launch it at 3, it comes out and it's broken, buggy, and they're like, oh, sorry. It's easier to ask for forgiveness, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, do what you want and then ask for forgiveness. Then, hey, guys, we're going to delay it again. We're going to delay it again. We're going to delay it again. And when they keep delaying, you're like, oh, there's problems. Beyond Good and Evil. Beyond Good and Evil 2, whatever, right? 15 years in development. Okay? They hyped it up to the beyond belief. Skull and Bones, they announced it like 6-7 years ago, okay? And it hasn't come out yet. It's coming out later this year. Those things are under microscopes right now because when it comes out, you're going to be like, wait a minute, you've been working on this game for 7 years, rebooted it 3 times, and now it's coming out, and it's still going to be probably a broken, buggy mess when it comes out, right? And you're paying full price for that game. So I think developers, the investments and stuff like that, this goes into a whole big conversation. I think they're just launching way too early. The upper management, I don't know if it's the schooling, I don't know if it's the people that have been raised and they just don't know what, like they've never been told no before, because just that's like the society nowadays. But they're launching stuff way too early, and then they're asking for forgiveness, and they fix it over the next 18 months. And then they're like, hey, thanks for the support. Thanks for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it. Oh, by the way, we're closing the servers down. Thanks for your help. And it's like, wait a minute. You just fixed the game, right? And now you're going on to something else, right? EA does that all the time. They did it with Battlefront 2. They did it with Battlefield 5. They did it with, you know what I mean? They just keep doing it.
Yeah. I look at live service kind of the same way you did with free to play. But I do understand where people are coming from, where like if I pay $70 for the game and they're wanting it to be sort of stretched, the concern would be, am I getting everything at launch, or are you just pulling some kind of a, here's 60% of the game, we'll add the next 40% over the year. Okay, fine. You can speculate or be cynical or guess that they're doing that. But I look at live service zoomed out and say similar things that you said. The only way this works is if the content loop is good and if the ongoing model functions. Those two things are like the wheels of a bicycle. If they're not both spinning, you're on the side of the road dead. It's not going to work. So that's why I'm like, listen, let everybody take a crack at this. Because you know what's going to happen? The same thing's going to happen with live service games, with loot-based games, with ongoing looter games. You know what's going to happen? Exactly what happened with Battle Royales. The cream will rise to the top. There will be killer loot-based live service games that rise to the top. I feel like in 10 years, we're going to turn around and be like, I mean, Destiny and Division and those games, they were fine. But these are the games that are worth playing. Like, the right games will rise to the top, because the people that nail the live service ongoing format, they'll get the engagement, they'll get the money, they'll get the support. I mean, look at what Final Fantasy did. They were so successful with their Endwalker that they had to stop. Endwalker. They had to stop selling it. Like, that's I think that's where we're headed, is like the excellence will seep through. Let all the chaff fall on the floor, right? And I'm not encouraging people to buy every live service game that comes out and be like, well, there's going to be some good ones in here somewhere. Like, I'm not saying that. Like, be a frugal, wise customer. Wait for reviews. Let YouTubers like us play it first and chop it up and see if it's worth playing. I mean, who knows? Transformers could be a dadgum disaster. We don't know.
Absolutely.
So that's what I think. Let them, like he says in Godzilla, let them fight. Let these companies duke it out and go for the prize of best loot-based live service game. Because I'm telling you right now, the crown is slipping. I don't think Destiny's the be-all, end-all. I think there are better loot-based games on the horizon. We just haven't seen them yet. Somebody's watching and learning from all these companies. I think Diablo 4 is the next big rock to get thrown into the pond, and it's going to ripple out, and it's going to affect the industry. People are going to say, that's how you do it. That's how you build an ongoing game, because they've got 8 years of data from Diablo 3 Seasonal Loot 2.0 format to build a game. They got 8 years of info and data and player behavior. I'm telling you, that's the next impact.
You would hope they would take that data and do something with it, right? Because my biggest fear for Transformers, to try to bring it back to Transformers, right, is that Transformers doesn't do the exact same mistakes as Destiny. The exact same mistakes as far as Warframe or Division did, right? Division 2 learned from Division 1. Okay, they made the structural loot. You know where to go. You can hone in on what you want to grind for. They respect your time. Destiny still doesn't do that, right? Warframe is all about the Warframes itself and opening up, and they're trying to make it. They've learned their lesson as the game's evolved over time from what it was in the beginning to what it is now. Warframe's a completely different game. So you look at the 10 years before, right? Anthem didn't learn the lesson, right? Anthem didn't learn the lesson. Any other Marvel's Avengers didn't learn the lesson. So hopefully that this game has been in development so long that they've changed along the ways and saw what Destiny was doing, what Warframe was doing, and say, hey, let's not make the exact same mistakes they did. At least put the baseline up higher and then make your own mistakes. Make new mistakes. Don't make the same mistakes, right? Like if the game comes out and you can't hone in on loot, it's a looter, but you can't hone in on the loot for intentionality purposes, fail, right? And I'll criticize it. I'm a huge Transformers guy. I'm going to love this game from top to bottom. I mean, I put 1,100 hours into Marvel's Avengers. I know some of you will laugh at that, but you play the games that you like. I love Marvel. I love Star Wars. I love Transformers. If you put me in a game that I can continuously play a game, Marvel's Avengers, live service game, bad live service game, I put the time in because I like the characters, right? So if Transformers comes out and learns nothing from Warframe, nothing from Division, and nothing from Destiny, I'm easily going to put 400 to 500 hours into that game, okay? As the exact same mistakes as doing. Why? Because I love the IP. I love the actual what the Transformers are. If it was just generic robot game number 2, I'd be like, I'll put in a couple, 50 hours and go, yeah, it's not for me. But that IP, man, that IP is what hooks me. If you get a God of War game, but it's Jedi, like Jedi Fallen Order, that's sort of like a God of War, right? Yep. That intrigues you more because you're a Star Wars fan, right?
Oh,
you might be a God of War fan because you play the other God of War games.
Yeah.
But you're a Star Wars fan from life, right? Mm-hmm. And when you get to play a character in that world, it's a much better experience than if you just played a generic game. And I'm not calling God of War generic. I'm just saying.
Sure.
Right? Like, for instance, Indiana Jones coming out, right? Indiana Jones, the movie, and Indiana Jones, the game by Bethesda, is supposed to be coming out, right?
Oh, boy.
Every time I played Uncharted and every time I played Tomb Raider, I was like, oh, this is like Indiana Jones. But those characters are new in video game form, and then Indiana Jones is an IP that you love. Now, if they made an Uncharted but Indiana Jones version, you'd be like, oh, this is such a good game, right? Don't change anything. It's just Uncharted, but with Harrison Ford as the protagonist of the game, and you're controlling Harrison Ford. You would love that game because you're an indie fan. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that is a huge factor with these games. I think that's a danger, right? Because you're going to be dealing with fandom. I think, oh my gosh, fandom is dangerous, man. If you look at the way people have reacted to TV shows and movies when it's attached to something much bigger. Now, obviously, we've gotten a lot of crap, like Obi-Wan was just such a bad show. And then we get just absolute greatness in shows like Andor that is equal to the quality of Empire and Rogue One. So it's like the pendulum of quality swings there, and look at the way the fans respond, right? So I'd be scared. I would be just petrified to create a game that's attached to fandom, because you can really, really upset people for reasons that the developers didn't foresee. And it seems like there is some passion behind this when the guy says his favorite era was G1, like he remembers as a kid, playing with the G1 Transformers. And when I saw the leak saying that, it had taken some cues from Destiny, I'll be honest, as somebody who covered that game exhaustively for like half of a decade, when I would say this, I would say the same thing if I was still covering that game and obviously and milking it for views, right? I would still say this. I would actually be concerned for anybody who says, oh, we took cues and notes and inspiration from Destiny. I'd be like, okay, wait a minute.
Which ones?
Did you learn? Yeah. Did you learn from their mistakes, or are you just going to go with the formulaic seasonal model that's like super predictable? And because I started to see New World doing that. Like I looked at New World's advertising and their model and the way they structured their blog posts, and I'm like, this seems awfully familiar in the way they're setting this up. Like look at their seasonal winter events and stuff, and how they market them and how they write their blogs and how they throw out the pictures. I'm like, this seems kind of similar. Not that it's bad, but when I hear somebody saying that they're like, oh yeah, this game's inspired by, or they took some cues from Destiny, I'm like, now wait a minute. I want to know, did you take cues from just what they got right, what worked? Because then we can end up with a bunch of sort of like, I don't know, Destiny copies where it's like, yeah, you're not running around as a warlock shooting a gun, but it's just that predictable seasonal model. And that's when I think people could make the criticism that all live service games are starting to feel the same or whatever. I would rather them say, yeah, we learned from them, because boy, oh boy, have they made a lot of mistakes. Boy, oh boy, is their game lacking in elasticity and longevity. They had to gut half their game and delete planets and take things from people. And that's what I want to hear. Like, did you learn from everything that they did? Not just them. What about Division 1? What about Division 2? What about Anthem? That's my hope, is that some of these companies are looking at the scope of what has happened in this realm and truly making a good game, and not just saying, hey, that format works, let's do that too.
Right. Like, I obviously I'm not a game developer, but if I was, and I wanted to inspire to be like, all of a sudden I played Destiny or I played Warframe, I went, you know what? I want to make a game like Warframe, but with Transformers. Is my mic still cutting in and out? Someone said it was.
It wasn't. I don't know what they're talking about.
Okay.
I think at one time Discord did a thing and it wasn't you, but you're fine.
All right. So if I inspire to be like, man, I want to be a game developer and I want to make a game like Destiny. I want to make a game like Warframe. I want to make a live service looter shooter type of game. I'm not going to go, let me make the same exact mistakes that they made. I would take the good parts, right? Like, would I take the storytelling from Destiny? Probably not. Okay. Would I take the gunplay if it was a first person shooter game? Hell yes. I would 100% take that gunplay, right? Would I take the movement of Warframe where you spin and go really fast through the thing? I'll be like, yeah, probably. It all depends on what type of game you want to make, right?
Yeah.
But you would take the good parts. You would never take the bad parts and go, you know what? I'm gonna take that really bad, shitty part of the no world bosses or the loot system where there's nothing dropping, right? Like, let me take that. You would take the loot system from Division 2 where you can go, okay, I'm Optimus Prime. I'm looking for an axe. Okay, where can I get the axe from? Well, the axe drops from this boss, or it drops from New York, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go to New York, and I'm gonna grind my ass off for this axe, so my Optimus Prime has the badass axe, right? And you just keep grinding for it, right? That would be good things to do. I don't know why someone goes, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna inspire to make a game. Tunic inspired to make like a Zelda game, but it didn't make a Zelda game. It made a Zelda game and better, in my opinion, right? Tunic took what the old Zelda was and then added stuff to it. It was like a tip of the hat to, I love Zelda. I'm going to make a Zelda game, but I'm going to make it better and what I think is better, right? And that's what he did. One guy created a game that he thought was better than the original Zelda, what he was inspired to make. That's what you should do. You shouldn't just make the same thing. You shouldn't just copy pasta and go, oh yeah, there's money in this. I'm going to take Destiny characters and I'm just going to make them into Transformers. Bing, bada, boom, print it. We're done, right? Like, I don't want a skin. I could go, you know what I mean? Like, don't do that. Take what you've learned from those games and then make a better game. Raise the bar, move it above, and then someone else comes along 5, 6, 7 years from now and goes, you know what game was really good? Transformers Reactive was a really good game. But you know what? I'm going to make a better game. I'm going to use GoBots instead. And then I'm going to make a looter shooter with GoBots. Nobody's going to make that game, by the way. Right? And then that's what you're going to do. You're going to inspire to make a better game than the game that you were inspired by.
Yeah. And I've got a super chat tip here. I decided to throw it up on the screen. Let's try something new here. Let's do this. From Dark Taco. He says, do you guys think the looter genre is struggling so much because they're all built on the legacy DLC model, and now they're attempting a new hybrid seasonal annual DLC release? Do you think that's part of the issue, Mike? That it's like, hey, the legacy DLC model, those bones are still there, and they're trying to do this seasonal tack-on thing where it's like, where's the end? Eugene's almost adding to this. He's like, you got to have an end game. You have to have no, he didn't say end game. You have to have an exit strategy. He says 4 to 5 years. I'm saying 10. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have, you definitely do have to have an exit strategy. Like if you're going for 10, you got to finish out that 10. If you're going for 5, you got to finish out that 5. You can't have senioritis and at year 3 stumble and go, let's just throw out the rest of it just to get to that 5 type of thing. You have to have a plan. You have to have the number one thing about what makes a good movie, in my experience in the movie industry, is that you have to do pre-production, right? When you have a script, you have to have a script breakdown, and then you have to have the movie's got to be done and shot in storyboard form. So when you bring everyone together, they can make that movie and it's the best movie ever, right? Because of pre-production. A lot of these games I don't think do a lot of pre-production. I think they're like fly by night. Hey, I saw that in a game. Let's add that type of thing. They don't really do the research or the storyboards ahead of time. So for the DLC model, will always be a fan of make a game, sell a game, sell a DLC, pay for buy a DLC, right? Play it, and I'm okay with the season model if it's a season pass and they have little things going on throughout the year, right? But at the same time, I also want that DLC every year or every 6 months. Give me a full-fledged paid-for DLC. And the reason I want it paid for is because I feel that if a game company does the right work and puts the production in and puts the pre-production in and makes that game really good, then they'll get their $40 for that DLC or they'll get their $30 for that DLC, right? Where if it's just Give me your $70 up front. Give me your $40 up front for the season pass because you paid $100 at the beginning of the game. We already have your money, so we're going to kind of just give you whatever we want at that point, right? It doesn't matter how long or short it is. They already have your money. You can't do anything about it, and then you're going to just complain about it. You're going to be like, well, that was a really short DLC or season pass. But if it's a paid DLC, they charge $30, $40. You're like, oh, all right, $30, $40. I feel, maybe it's just a perception, that they actually give a shit. And they actually put something forefront in front of you to go, we're asking for $30, $40 up front for this DLC, and we think it's the best. We think it's the best. So give us money for this, and you'll enjoy it. But I don't think that's the case anymore. I think the way society is, we want everything for nothing, okay? And we want it to be the best ever. And if you don't get 100 hours out of it, it's not worth your time. You know what I'm saying? Like if you don't, if you get a free to play game and you don't get 100 hours out of it, you're like, God, this game sucks. I only had 250 hours out of the game. I should have had 500. It's like, what are you complaining about? Like, it's a free to play game. You spent $0 on it. You didn't buy the season pass. You didn't buy any microtransactions. You literally enjoyed it for 100 hours, but you're complained about it after 250. I just don't understand. I personally would rather pay for DLC. DLC should always be, in my opinion, always be in the realm of that's how a game gets you more interested back in it. It's definitely a live service game. Hey, after season 3, we're coming out with our brand new DLC. Like Destiny's kind of doing that with their Lightfall, and they've always done that with what was the first one? Not House of Wolves, Deep, the Moon one when they first came out with the Moon.
Oh, the Dark Below.
Dark Below. Then there was the House of Wolves. Then there was the Taken King, right? Like you paid for those DLCs. And I think we were happy with those DLCs, but people weren't happy because they thought it was locked behind a paywall, but they were happy with the DLCs as they were, right? The paid DLCs.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think people want to pay upfront. And then when they get the car, it's like buying a brand new car and then the car doesn't have 4 wheels, but you already paid for it. So you're like, oh, well, I guess I'll wait for the wheels to come out. I don't know. I like DLCs. I'm a person of DLC habit. What about you? Do you like DLCs or do you like the free model?
Yeah. So chat. This is from a super chat from Dark Taco. That's what Mike's answering. So I'll take my answer here because I have a lot more concerns with DLC model because everybody has, I think, bigger expectations when you're spending $30. Let's say 30, maybe 40. For a DLC, because they're thinking it's almost like it's jam-packed with baggage. Is this an expansion?
Right.
Is this going to be this big substantive ad? I think it's difficult for developers to make it a substantive ad. It's one of the dilemmas, and we know this, that Destiny went through this. They couldn't do enough in the DLCs, and so it was consumed too fast. So the rhythmic behavior of the players lined up better with let's do a season every 3 months and then do one big expansion a year. And I look at that and think, man, logistically, I think that just is the right call a lot of the times because you're getting both, right? I actually don't think you want to pivot from one to the other. I think you need to do both. I think one serves the other. I think the seasons serve a DLC model because it allows a larger team to invest in more content, something that's more substantive, so there's a clear difference in the value transmission. When you're buying a season, it's a lower cost, it's happening more often, it's going to be a thinner offering, which obviously the more you play the game, the thinner that offering probably feels, right?
Right.
Is that on the developers? Is that on the gamers? It's probably a symbiotic relationship of you're just playing so often that of course it feels thin, but then also the developers are kind of phoning it in sometimes, right? Bit of both. But then that empowers them to say, every 12 months we have a pretty substantive offer that we think is worth a higher price point. There's more happening, bigger story beats, etc. So yeah, I actually am in favor of that model. I think what Destiny does from a logistical standpoint is probably the right rhythm. And if let's say Diablo wants to do that. They're going to be doing seasons, and then maybe once a year Diablo says, here's an expansion with a new class. You could see similar things in Transformers. Seasons 2, 3, and 4 or maybe just seasons 2 and 3, are just, here's new things to do, new stuff to get, new cosmetics, blah, blah, blah. And then when season 4 or 5 hits, you're launching into a new year. You've got your tentpole expansion. It comes with a new Transformer. You know, it's clearly taking the Transformers game further and not just sort of maintaining a rhythm of content. That always has to be the question is this taking the game, in my experience, further, or are you just maintaining a content rhythm? And I think many people have kind of hit that snag with the Diablo 3 seasonal model and Destiny 2. It's like, we're all going through the motions now, both the developers and the players. It's like, we've done this before, you're just maintaining a content rhythm. I'm kind of done. And I think that's fine. I think when people get to that healthy place of realizing that the game's not really, it's not tickling their brain anymore, you know, find something that does. And the live service question is, how do you do that long term? How do you get past, you know, the 13th month? It's like in, what was that movie, Castaway, where he knows he's got to get through that section of the waves and he uses that thing. I feel like live service games are like that. There's a wave out there that if you can get over that hump, you can really set sail and keep your game going. And I don't know when that is. Is it 12th, 13th month? Somewhere out there is when I think that hump is. If you can't get over that hump, you're just going to have player exodus.
Yeah, the problem is, it all depends. Obviously, you can't really answer this question exactly as is, but each player is different. And someone that plays 100 hours and someone that plays 100 hours in 1 month or 100 hours in 10 months. You see what I'm saying? So like the person that plays 100 hours in 10 months doesn't see any problems with the live service game because like, oh, this is perfect, right? It's going along with their beat of, oh yeah, I'm completing this. But the person that's playing 100 hours in 1 month is like burns through it, and you're like waiting. You're like a hungry dog. Like you're waiting for your master to put the food down, and then you just eat it up all as fast as you possibly can, right? Like you're starving. Where if it's a rhythmic type of thing where you're not grinding, the live service model works really well. But if you're a person that just dives into it constantly and then waits, you get kind of upset, right? You get upset because you're like, oh, they're not keeping up with so you're bored, right? So what happens is let's call them the 10%, right? The 10%ers that have all the time and they just burst through it are vocal as well because they're on Twitter, they're on YouTube, they have their finger on the pulse, right? They're following all the YouTubers talking about that particular game. They're reading articles about that game. They're watching live streams about that game. They're all in on that game, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the other people. Like I have one of my best friends loves Destiny. He plays it completely different than I did, right? He's like, yeah, I'm level, whatever, and I'm still just doing I just got to the last dungeon. I'd be like, holy Christ, I've been to that like 5 months ago, right? And he loved it. He loved a completely different experience than I had. And I was just bitter. I was like, I'm waiting for DLC to come out. And then they sold me the same stuff I did when I was doing it, right? So you have to have this rhythm of, I think the seasons could do well, but you also have to have and know that no matter what you do, if you're in that 10%, you're never going to be happy with the content they give you because you're going to blow through it so fast, where the person that they're making it for is the other 80%, 90% of the population that plays that game at a completely different pace, right? And they are hitting the majority. They're like, yeah, that's fine. The season, it takes 12 weeks. Majority of the population doesn't even get to level 60 on the season pass. Meanwhile, the 10%ers are at 400, level 400 or whatever it is. Yeah. So they're never going to feed that beast, and that beast is always going to be vocal of, this is boring, I'm waiting, this takes too long, not enough stuff, not enough weapons, not enough story, because you're just blowing through it in super fast, right? Yeah. So it's always going to be a thing. I think Transformers could change it based on, there's so many Transformers. There's like 500 Transformers, right? Not all of them are famous or well known or not, but if they do an event around one Decepticon, one Autobot every season, you go through the season, that's two bots that you're going for. If you're an Autobot, you're just going for the Autobot. If you're Decepticon, you're just going for a Decepticon. Or if you're a gamer and you're a grinder, you're going for both of them, right? So that doubles the time for someone that's high-end, 10%, that wants to play the game as long as possible. If you're just a casual player, you're like, I'm an Autobot guy. I'm going to get the new Autobot. And then the Decepticon is just getting the new Decepticon. But if you're hardcore, you're getting both, and you have all that time to go through. And I think they could, if they put 5 out every season. Again, this is all just putting out stuff out there. If you put 5 every year or 6 every year or every season, sorry, and there's 4 seasons in a year, that's only what 20 robots out of 500 that you could potentially put into the game. So now 20 a year, 5 years down the road, that's only 100, right? And then you still have 400 other robots that you could put into the game. So they could do something along the lines of that to keep you interested in going.
Do you think in a Transformers game that would be the risk, though, that they're really going to have to rely on the Transformers themselves, which means do you envision that being a possibility, or is that too bloated? If I'm in year 2 going into year 3 and I got 40, 30-something bots that I can pick from, I don't know. I'm thinking that might work because it feels like sort of a cross between like Pokemon and Transformers. Like, gotta catch them all. I got all this.
Gotta collect them all. Yeah.
Yeah, and then does that give them more longitudinal freedom? Like, you can actually take more of those characters up because you have so many of them. I don't know. I also think that, like, oh my gosh, that's just going to dilute the value of each one.
Well, if you base game, let's say there's 10 robots, right? 5 Autobots, 5 Decepticons, right? And if you're only playing Autobots, you got 5 robots to use, and if you're playing Decepticons, you got 5. But if you play both, you have 10 robots. That's a pretty good size for the start out, right? 10 robots for you to collect and whatnot. So I don't know if you're collecting them and each one has a special power or a special ability or does something different or helps you with something. I mean, obviously a medic's a medic across the board, but there has to be some sort of other trait that the reason you would get that robot, why you would collect it besides the look of it, right? And then on top of that, you could, I don't know, let's say one of the raids. Let's say there's a raid. I don't know if there is, right? Let's say there's a raid type of thing or a dungeon type of thing, and Galvatron is the one that you're getting at the end of that. Would you run that to get? Would you run that to get Galvatron? If you're not interested in Galvatron, you probably wouldn't run it. But if you're a person that's like, I gotta collect all the Transformers and now I can use Galvatron, then I'm gonna run it. You know what I mean? So the game doesn't have to be good for everybody, but it's got to be good for the people that want to play Transformers, right? And playing Transformers is you want to collect Transformers.
Right, and is that the key, right? Are we thinking through... Oh, man, see, but the risk there is you can't just make this game for Transformers fans. You have to make this for a video game, like you have to make it for gamers. Because gamers...
That's where the weapons and mods and other things come in, right?
Right. Because if somebody looks at this game and says... Well, wait a minute. Like, that's gonna be absurd. That's gonna take way too long, to do all that. It's so hard because people want what they actually don't want. You don't want that many things to chase and do. You'd be almost overwhelmed.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. Why you're saying that, you're like, would people do it? Well, if you're interested, you would, right? If you're not interested in it, why would you put yourself through it to go get that thing?
Well, yes and no, because like if you that's the dilemma. Anytime you've got a game like this, it's kind of riding on the nostalgia, riding on the fandom. If they just make this for Transformers fans, I feel like that's too narrow. If they make this a video game first and a Transformers game second, then it also could fail because people be like, it's just a generic Transformers game, or it doesn't feel like it was built for fans of Transformers. Like, it's just a very, very, I think they're dancing on a line anytime you do something like this, because you honestly need non-Transformers fans to feel like it's an approachable and enjoyable game as well.
Right, well, like Weezy's saying is someone's always interested in something. Sure, if I'm playing Transformers game and I'm interested in Optimus Prime and then I get my goal of getting Optimus Prime, then you've hit your goal, right? You've gotten what you wanted. If once you get what you wanted and you're not interested in anything else, why would you continue going for the things that you don't want? You would just play the character that you want. So once you have that character, then you're like, well, how can I min-max this character to get better gear, right? So that you've already got the prize. Now you're taking your prize and then making that prize better for yourself because that's all you want to play is that particular character, right? If you're not interested in the game, you don't buy the game, right? if you're interested in a game, you might be interested because of PvP. You might be interested in PvE. You might be interested in getting a drop, a particular weapon, a particular robot, a particular skin, right? Obviously, we all have things that we want. But what I'm saying is if someone says, well, that's not fair, I can't get Megatron because I don't have the time to put in.
Right.
I mean, then make your time. Like if that time takes 10 hours, but you don't have 10 hours to put in 2 days, you might have to put in a half hour for 20 days, right? And then you'll get the thing that you want, right? You have to put the time in. I mean, no matter what, it all comes down to time, right? But Blackcraft, what do you mean that's not fair? It's a free-to-play game. You're paying $0, and all it takes is your time, right? Time is time. 10 minutes is 10 minutes. If you take 10 minutes over a day or 10 minutes over 5 days, you still have 10 minutes that you're putting into the exact same game that someone else is putting in, right? So how is that not fair?
I always think of it as it has to feel like a gym. So, like, I can go to a gym right now, and there's a guy curling 60-pound dumbbells, and I'm not going to do that. No way.
Right.
I'm not that strong.
But you could.
Eventually, maybe.
Right. You got to put the time in.
So, I engage at a lower intensity than him. Maybe I'm not there as long as he is. Maybe he has a life where he's there all day. He's a gym rat. He lives there. So I look at live service games a lot of the times and I think of it in that way. You need me to put down the 20-pound dumbbells from my 30-minute workout session, and I need to feel those endorphins. I need to feel good.
Right.
I got my burn, I got my gains, and then I'm going to leave. And a live service game's struggle is just that. You have to let the guy that's going to go the distance, every nook and cranny, every transformer, every activity, he's going to play 5 hours a day. He needs to feel that endorphin kick. Well, it's actually dopamine instead, but he needs to feel that during and at the end of a play session for months. And so does the guy that's doing the same thing, but only once a week.
Yeah, but that guy that you saw at the gym, he put in the thousands of hours to get to that point. You're just seeing him. You're just seeing him at the point where he is now, and you're like, oh, I'll never get there, right? But he did the exact same thing. He started and put the time in to get where he wants to go, right? You can't say, I mean, you can. Anyone's allowed to say it, right? Sure. But you could say it's not fair, but it is fair. Time is time, right? No matter if you spent $60 and I spent $60 and you beat the game in 10 hours and I beat it in 10 hours, but I only have a half hour to play each day, it's the same. Time is time. So if it's a free-to-play game and all the robots are able to get, you're going to grind. I know it's going to be grindy. Warframe's grindy, right? Anything that's free, you're going to be grinding a lot for. So if you paid for the game, it would take you, let's say, 5 hours to unlock the robot. But if it's a free-to-play game, it's going to take you 50 hours to unlock a robot. You see what I'm saying? Like, That's the difference. Because obviously, at the end of the day, it's a business, and they want to sell you Transformers. They want to give you some Transformers, but they also want to entice you to pay. So if you have 10 hours, and you could play and unlock that Soundwave, let's say. But if I have $20, but I don't want to unlock Soundwave with 10 hours of time, and I throw $20 at it, then you'll be able to get Soundwave with $20, and then you don't have to you don't have the process of grinding to get Soundwave. You paid $20. Well, in reality, you were grinding in real life, earning that $20 to then spend it how you want, right? Where the guy who didn't have a job, okay, is spending the 10 hours grinding in the game to get the exact same thing that you paid for $20 in 10 seconds. You see what I'm saying? And that's the analogy that he just said. The $20 is the guy at the gym who's big and bulky and is ready to go. And the person that has the time coming to the gym is the person that has 10 hours to put in going, I'm never going to get there to get Soundwave or get Megatron, right? Because I don't have any money, but I have to put the time. I don't know if I want that. Well, if you don't think you can do it, then you're not going to do it. And it's not fair. It's just that you're not interested enough to go for that robot or go for that gun or go for the thing. You know what I'm saying?
So we've been interacting with him and saying a lot. Would you be okay with being able to not grind for these guys, but to pay for them? Is that what you're saying?
Well, one of the rumors is that you will be able to purchase the robots like Warframe, right? So in Warframe, you could buy the frame, right? But you still have to level up that frame. You can buy the frame, or I believe you can also get, and correct me if I'm wrong, Czech, because I haven't played Warframe in a really long time. I think you could pay even more money and get like a full frame, and then you could just go do the end game content type of stuff, if I'm not mistaken. But for the majority of it, you could just unlock the frame, right? And then you level up the weapons for that frame, and you can just go about your business. Or you could grind like I did. I have like, I think, 8 or 9 frames, and I earned every single one of them, right? Even if I grinded for the in-game currency and then earned the extra slot to then get get the pieces to make the frame, and then I grind for that frame, and then I grind to level up that frame, right? So someone that paid $20 skips that 10 hours of grinding for the frame, right? Now I grinded 10 hours to get the frame, and then I'm putting the same amount of time in to actually get the frame up to level. So I have no problem if you want to pay $20, and because it's a PvE game, it's not a PvP game, right? There's no pay to win aspect of this. You're playing with someone that's working with you to play the game to go through it. So if you're jealous because someone's got Galvatron maxed out and you just going for Galvatron, one, obviously if it's day one, you're like, well, that guy paid for it. But if it's like 1 week down the road and you see Galvatron, you'd be like, oh, I wonder if he grinded for it or if he paid for it. You'll probably just assume that he paid for it, right? And while you're grinding for it. And if you like that character enough, you'll pay for it. And if you don't want to pay for it, then you're going to grind for it. And that's what the separates.
I am not ideologically opposed to pay to progress or pay to skip. I don't care about that, because there are people that will say, oh, let's pay to win. Well, no.
It has nothing to do with you, right? It helps that person.
Right, it's pay to progress, pay to win. Pay to progress is not pay to win, I mean. So,
right.
Pay to progress, pay not to play, pay to skip. I am always very nervous when I hear a game's going to do that, because I call this the art of the squeeze, where the grind is set up in such a way to be almost inaccessible. Like, you're just not going to be able to get there on your own. You're going to feel that sense of, golly, I just want this guy, or I just want this thing. Your investment, your sunk cost is almost pitted against you, and
right.
You're not motivated to purchase because you're like, well, I'm a 5-hour-a-week player, and I would rather just get this guy and play with my buddies. You're like, bro, I'm playing every night. This is going to take just an ungodly amount of time. So now I'm going to spend money. So I always get a little nervous when I hear that. I'm like, okay, is it going to be a reasonable, satisfying grind? Or are you going to squeeze me like a boa constrictor till I pop? And I'm like, oh yeah, fine, I'll pay money. I'm always a little nervous when I hear that.
I don't like digital sales, right? I don't like microtransactions. I've never purchased it. And jokingly, I said that this will probably be that game that I spend a microtransaction on. Because I always earn the in-game currency if it's like Fortnite or whatever it is. If it's a season pass, I don't buy season passes unless I play that game so much that I beat the season pass and I'm done with the season pass. And then I'm like, you know what? I'll pay the $10 now, right? Or the $15 for the season pass. Because I know I had enough time to complete it and I enjoyed the game. So now I feel like they're rewarded with my money, right? Where if I did it the opposite way and I paid the $10 or $15 for the season pass up front, but then all of a sudden, I don't know, I get called for work and I don't have time to play. When I just give him $15 and I have 2 levels, right? And I'm like, I didn't even play the game, right? So I'm in the mentality of, if I like your game, I'm going to play your game, and if I play your game, then I'll reward you with the money because I've enjoyed myself in the time in the game. I'll either pay for a skin or I'll pay for the season pass or whatever. So if it's Transformers and I have to grind, I am going to grind. But all of a sudden, if a skin comes out, I'm like, dude, that skin looks badass, right? I might buy my first microtransaction. Why? Because I like the IP, right? The IP is what sells me. And this might be my kryptonite where I actually, spend my first dollars on a microtransaction.
Well, and I think that's always what microtransactions come down to. If the value tip the needle strong enough to get your purchase. And that's where I think the discussions about, Fortnite skins are too expensive, or, this thing is too expensive, whatever. It's always, okay, well, yeah, but the people buying it don't think so. Like, the people buying it, the needle has tipped, the needle has pushed in the direction of they're willing to pay. And that's when I look at a game like this Transformers game and you say that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be watching for this. I'm going to be watching for my, the red flags to go off, because, like, is the needle going to move purely for those people that are like, I am very casual and don't have time, or is the needle going to move because you exhaust me,
Right.
Because there's also, because Wheezy's saying in chat, hey, spend $10 and day one you can play with the new guy. That's what turned him off from Warframe. I do wonder also if that does have the inverse effect of disincentivization of, like, yeah, come grind for this new guy, and you see people running around with him who just bought him, and you're like,
but that's just the skin, though. That's just the skin. They're not buying the full version. You know what I'm saying? They still have to grind that character to get them up to power.
Right,
and buying the skin. Yeah.
The hope would be that they can't spend to grind him up, because
correct. Obviously, we're all talking. We don't know either way, one way or the other.
It always makes me think of Marvel Puzzle Quest. Like, they would release a new character, everybody gets him. Like, you go fight him and then you get him. That's how it worked. But to level him and all of his abilities up, you had to use that character like crazy, or you could spend a bunch of money.
Right.
And everybody spent money because it was like, usually new characters were OP. Like, I remember when the Hulk came out, it was like the veil came down for him. Like, this is scummy. They're doing this. They release an OP character. Everybody spends money to level him up. And then once everybody spent their money, they nerf him. Like, it was so scummy. And I look at Transformers, I'm like, please don't do that. Like, don't turn it into this, spend money to get the Transformer. Oh, then you can spend money to level up the Transformer. And then us that would prefer to grind feel like, and you guys are really devaluing the grind and the effort. You're just making it a transaction.
Right. Well, there's also a rumor that they, because Hasbro is 100% involved with this, right? Because they're trying to sell more stuff, and the Transformers IP is very, very, very famous IP to have to sell the Transformers. The toy lines are getting more into toy stores and whatnot. So there's a rumor that you'll be able to buy a toy, right? And so, for instance, let's say I have this Doctor Strange character, right? I go to Target and I buy the Optimus Prime of this character, and then I scan the barcode, so it's like an amiibo type of thing, right? And then I would have Optimus Prime in the actual game, right? This Optimus Prime in the game, right? So I look at that and I'm like, okay, am I okay with that? Because one, I get the physical statue, toy, whatever,
Yeah.
right? And that sits on my desk, okay? And now I also have that character skin in the game, right? So now I paid $15, $20 for the actual figure. Now he's actually in my game, and now I can level up that character in the game. Is that something you would be interested in, or no? That gives you a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah, my whole face contorted. I was like, oh, no, please don't do that. Please don't do that. I don't like.
Like Disney Infinity, like all those amiibos. Yeah.
You're merchifying the game. That doesn't feel like a video game. That feels like, it literally feels like a mobile game has come to life and is haunting my dreams now. Like, hey, come buy this plastic, and then you get a guy in the game. It's like, I'd be okay with that if it was cosmetically driven. Like, if I got Optimus, if I got Optimus Prime and you're selling some super dope Optimus Prime collectible at the store, and that gives me a skin in the game, yeah, that doesn't bother me. But when I go buy Soundwave from the store and then I get him in the game, I don't know. I immediately, old man get off my lawn, recoil to that. I'm like, what in the world? Back in my day, like, I'm like, why are you doing that? That feels like the Skylanders, like, kiddish. It's like this weird amalgamation of impulse buying, like, toy buying, and I don't know. Lego and Marvel do the same thing where, like, you don't know what's in the bag.
Dimensions does that. When they had Lego Dimensions, you would pay for the little figure, like separate entity to put into your game and stuff like that. I actually like it, because if I had to pay $15 for a digital skin and I got nothing from it, it's just the skin inside the game. But if I got that same skin with a $15 toy, and I got the toy now to show for it, so if the game ever shuts down, I still have the toy, but I lose my physical item, I'm okay. I think I'm okay with that. Where if it was $15 just for the digital skin, I'm like, is it worth $15 for the skin? Obviously, that's the answer's your own if you think it's worth 15 or not, right? I think it's more, as I think Abe said it, it's more of a, who said it? Pill to swallow? It's more of a, easier to go down that if I'm paying $15 for a skin, but I'm also getting something physical with it. I think that's better to me, in my opinion, than not getting anything.
Yeah, you get something to put on your shelf. So one day this game will be gone and your characters will be gone, and you know 20 years from now you'll be able to say, "Oh, I still have the plastic toy." I obviously would prefer that to all the freaking NFT trash that people tried to. Wait, have you heard a game company talk about that recently? No, because it friggin' crashed and burned as an idea and a concept. So, yeah, I'd be okay with that if it was just a skin. It was like, hey, you already have Bumblebee. We just released the 1970s model of Bumblebee, and if you buy him from the store, we'll give you a skin of the game. Oh, that's fine. They're cool. Yeah. I'll give it to my kid as a birthday present, and then I'll be like, hey, buddy, let me scan the bottom of that box, and then I get the skin of the game.
The one thing I see as a discrepancy to this is, what about if I don't buy the toy, can I buy it just digitally? You know what I'm saying? If they do
Right.
If they do it where, because now if it's just physical and that's the only way you can get the character in your game, that's going to cause a problem, because then scalpers will buy a whole bunch of toys,
Right.
and then sell them multiple times or scan the codes, and then you won't be able to use it. Like, I see nightmares happening with that. But that's my only downside, that people would buy it and you're like, oh, I can't get Optimus Prime because it was sold out at the stores. Now I'm trying to go around like it's a Beanie Baby. You know what I mean? I'm trying to find like one specific toy. That's the downside, I think, with physical items like that.
Yeah, I hate scalpers. I think they're market disrupting parasites. I cannot stand them. I don't have any respect for them. They think they're like a legitimate business, like, oh yeah, I buy and sell. No, you're a market disrupting parasite. Like, that's all you are. You're trying to take from people that want something and trying to make a buck on whatever it is, whether it's sneakers, Pokemon cards at McDonald's, or
that's it, Pokemon,
or PlayStation 5s. No, you're a parasite. You are not a legitimate business model, right? You are strong-arming a shortage in supply to make a quick buck. And so, yeah, that would be a huge problem. Well, yeah, I was going to get the cool new Transformer Bumblebee thing, but, some parasitic, idiot camped out at the Target and went in and bought all of them up.
Right.
So now I got to go to eBay and spend 3 times the market value. You're not adding anything to the market. You're preying on the market. So, yeah, I'd be okay if it was purely cosmetic. And that's always the line for me is, there's 2 lines. I prefer purchases to be cosmetic, no power. Progress is so close to the line, but whatever. If you want to do a boost pack or whatever, you don't want to play, fine.
Fortnite does it perfectly with as far as the skins go.
Yeah, but the minute you start getting into selling power, and the minute you start selling things that I'm grinding for, I have questions.
That's like 100%. I agree.
Like, wait, are you going to undercut grind? Are you going to motivate me to not grind? Is this guy like, well, who cares what somebody else does? Well, the vanity of how you look and progress in a game is an aspect of your loyalty to it. So you can't divorce that and be like, well, I don't care. Well, yeah, okay. How long is your game going to last if Johnny Credit Card can get everything moment 1 and it's going to take you 3 weeks to get it all? I think that would have an effect on a lot of people's experience. Maybe not you. Maybe some people would shrug that off and be like, who cares?
Yeah. I think for sure they're going to have some, and again, this is my speculation, just like any other free-to-play game, there's going to be some sort of orb or energon cube or something that you can purchase to cut your time in half and get double XP or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, but that's time. If people respect their time, if it takes me 15 hours to unlock a Transformer, but then if I buy this thing for $5, it takes me 7 hours. It cuts it in half. It's like, well, do I do that? And then how I look at it as, if it is a free-to-play game, I look at it as a $60 game. And I will spend $60 of my money in this game based on if I enjoy the game. Does that make sense? So, like, if in my imaginary world, I'm like, okay, it's a free-to-play game, so I'm willing to spend $60, and if I can buy 4 Transformers for that price, and then I'm done, even though it's free, I want, like Creature said, I like to support things I like. I love Transformers, and if Transformers goes away because no one pays for a cosmetic or something like that, that's going to be just sad that game goes away. So I'll support as long as I play. If I enjoy the game and I like the game, I'm not going to throw money at them because, oh, it's Transformers. If the game is a good game and it keeps my interest and stuff, I'll be like, you know what? I put 40 hours in this game. I'm gonna buy a cosmetic, or I'll buy the season pass, or I'll buy something. It will leave a bad taste in my mouth though if they sell, which they probably will, because all of them do. Cut your time in half, double XP, some sort of orb to level up your character. That stuff leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I'll probably grind as much as I can, and then I'll be like, you know what? I really want this, Transformer. I'll throw $15 at it or something. So
yeah. Well, let's do the fun question at the end, because we did a poll in chat. I'm going to end the poll and we'll look at the results. 300 votes even. Transformers Reactivate. Choose a side, Autobots or Decepticons. Autobots won by quite a bit, and people in chat were unhappy. They said, "Why are people picking Autobots?" I gotta say, I think I would probably pick Decepticons just because, it's fun to do bad things. No, I'm just saying, it's like fun to pick the bad guys.
Who's your favorite Transformer?
It's honestly hard for me to pick, because growing up, my favorite one was Soundwave, because he had a real cassette tape you could put in his chest.
That's my favorite one. Yeah, Soundwave is my favorite one. Just everything about him is just cool. His voice, the way he looks, all the tapes and stuff that used to pop out of him, Laserbeak and all of them, like fantastic. Everyone always thinks like Megatron or Optimus Prime. What's your second favorite? Like, okay, who's your favorite Autobot?
Yeah, you know what? It's weird. I would probably go with Optimus Prime just because I had more of the toys. I've got shirts. Like, he's just iconic. Like, I do like some of the others, but I just love Optimus Prime. I love his voice. I love the way he transforms is cool. I love how he always looks like a classic semi. Like, I don't know. I know it's weird, but I think I would pick Optimus.
Yeah, my Decepticon is Soundwave, and my Autobot is actually Jazz, because growing up, I loved Porsches. And when I saw a Porsche could transform into a robot, I was just like, this is amazing, right? But I do love Optimus Prime is that character, man, that's just like iconic. That's an iconic character. Like, Optimus Prime could have his own single-player game and like rock it, you know what I mean? Like, he's that heroic character that you just love.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of
truck.
The hard thing for me is remembering names, because I feel like there was one that I liked that they had. It might have been Ironhide. I can't remember.
What color? What type of vehicle?
It was like a truckish car. Like, he was bulky and tankish. Like,
was he red?
Yes, I think
Ironhide.
So. Okay.
So unless you're talking about Rodimus Prime or Hot Rod, which was the one with the flames on him.
Yeah, I loved Hot Rod. I had the car. I had Hot Rod, the car, growing up with the flames, and he turned into the car. I loved him. I loved Hot Rod, and I do think I liked Ironhide, because a friend of my mom's had so many more of the toys. I did have Hot Rod and Optimus Prime, and she had Soundwave, and I believe she had Ironhide. And I remember liking those as well. Those were some of the ones that I liked the most. I couldn't watch the cartoon growing up. We just had to kind of play with the toys.
Oh, did you ever? When did you watch maybe you haven't watched it. Did you ever watch the 1986 Transformer movie?
No. It was one of the ones that just didn't grace our homes.
You've never seen the 1986 Transformer movie?
No.
I'm not coming back on this show until you watch it.
There were some things. My parents were real picky about stuff. It was weird, because they got real weird about Transformers, He-Man, and the Ninja Turtles. But we could watch the Uncanny X-Men, and we could watch Animaniacs and The Tick. It was odd. There were just some shows that maybe they heard something. We grew up in like a super conservative environment, and I think my parents sometimes had other people telling them, "Oh, that show's bad," and then they would just say, "Oh, you guys can't watch that show." It wasn't like now where you had the internet and you could go vet or research a show. Word of mouth was enough to get us, nope, can't watch that show. That's all it took sometimes. G.I. Joes, we could never own or watch G.I. Joes because one person told my parents it was bad. That's all it would take.
I don't want to tell you like a spoiler, but you gotta watch it. I literally, as a kid, in shock. Okay, I'm gonna say it to you because you're probably not gonna watch it, right? Ironhide gets blown away point blank from Megatron. Okay, his face literally like melts because he gets blown away. Okay, at that moment as a kid, I was like, I was shocked. I was like, oh, I wanted to cry. I didn't cry. I cried when Optimus died. Okay, and I was like, holy Christ! Like, this is the best movie ever. As a kid, Transformers movie was phenomenal, right? He said, Omar says this is the worst theme song. Oh, come on, not the worst. It was the '80s. Like, you could pick any movie in the '80s, it would have the worst theme song.
It's a rough time. It's a rough time.
Yeah, there's a rough time for movies with the theme song. But holy Christ, man! Like, that movie's a fantastic movie. You got to watch it, Lono. You got to watch Transformers '86 movie. It's one of the best movies. It changed the landscape of Transformers from Generation 1 to when Megatron turns into Galvatron. Like, that's the movie. That's when he turns in, and it got like, you're like, what's happening? Like, the story plot and the storyline was amazing. I can't believe Lono hasn't watched Transformers.
Sorry, yeah. I guess I have my homework if I want Mike to come back on the show. Well, guys, we try to do this. We try to do this every week.
I'll never see you again. Bye.
Yeah. We try to do this show every week. I really hope if you're watching the VOD, we've been trying to do a podcast on Fridays. The roundtable, it was hit or miss. We had a lot of trips and people taking time off, and then Ginger had his real job that he got. So this is only the second week in a row we've done the rundown, but the plan is going forward every Friday, catch us here at noon doing the Reforge rundown. Sometimes we will move from the lead topic to like other things that happened in the week. Last week we did the Game Awards, so if you want to check that VOD out, do what you can to be here on Fridays and do what you can to support Mike. I'll be spamming the link to his channel in chat. We are trying to get his channel to 1,000 subs, dadgummit. And I want to see it. He's sitting at 891. Sadly, there's 207 of you here. I bet you a lot of you are already subbed, but if you're not, help us move that number. Get him on the final home stretch here. And Mike, what kind of content are you creating over there? What are you doing?
On 30 NSG, which is the new channel that you just plugged, we're doing Hogwarts Legacy. I'm doing breakdowns for the gameplay showcase. We did one for the flying. I'm going to do breakdown of the dark arts, and then we're going to do a breakdown of the room of requirements. We're also on Nerding with 30. I did some trailer reactions. I did Indiana Jones a couple weeks ago, and also I'm going to be doing Guardians of the Galaxy. I haven't watched that one yet. Also Cocaine Bear. I haven't seen the trailer and reviewed that yet off the trailer. So we're gonna do that on Nerding with 30, and then on the main channel we do live streams, Daily Grind, Monday through Thursday in the mornings, and then we do GXG Generation X Gaming on Thursday nights 8 p.m. Eastern.
Well,
lots of channels, lots of content.
Yeah, I'm not going to send you to any of my channels, guys, because we've been trying to get you to go to my Lego channel periodically. But today it's all about let's send people to 30. If you're a member or got gifted a member, you're going to want to be here tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's 6 hours from now. So anywhere in the world that you are, 6 hours from right now, Hilly and I are going to be playing some games, having some drinks and some laughs. It'll be the last Hilly hijinks of the year because the holidays are upon us. So it'll be a holiday Hilly hijinks. He's drinking some holiday beer. I'm going to have a Santa hat on. It's going to be dumb, hilarious, and fun. So make sure you're here tonight as a member. And on your way out, click that link in chat. I would love to see us get 30 on the final home stretch to 1,000 subscribers because we know that helps with monetization. And we're slowly doing the same thing with the Lego channel. So click the link in chat, and we'll see you tonight for some members insanity. And if I don't see you tonight, have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday morning or on 30's channel as well. Thanks for watching, guys.